So let me show you how people use Excel. As we speak, people in your company are doing this. Simple thing like copying a formula. How do you copy a formula? You put the formula and drag. Correct? I know. Few people know double click. The percentage is 5%, 95% drag, and they get salary for this. And if the boss is standing behind, you can't object because boss also drags. So when it comes to office, it's a great leveler. There is no developing country, developed country, there is no hierarchy. Everyone is inefficient. So when there is a disease which everyone has, it is not called pandemic, it is called normal. That is the problem with office. Double click, yes, but double click has its own issues. It won't work unless it's a contiguous block of data. Essentially, by saying double click, what are we asking Excel to do? You figure out where to copy the formula. Now, how does Excel figure out? By following the numbers on the right or left side. When the numbers are over, Excel assumes the data is over, so it stops. We know that. So everyone knows double click now. What are you going to do when you go back? Bridge the gap, double click, then go down, another gap, bridge the gap, double click. In fact, dragging was faster now. Second thoughts. At least it works. Yeah, but additional work, no? I'll tell you a faster way of dragging. This is an example of two isolated features which guaranteed all of you know, but if put together gives you additional benefit. Zoom out and then drag. Am I not efficient now? I have reached 14,000. When you are dragging, are you interested in exactly what is being dragged? No, you just want to copy the thing. So copy it at least fast. Everyone knows zoom out, everyone knows drag. People will not put two and two together. Anyway, this is not a good way. This is just a time pass workaround, but it can be used under circumstances. The right way of doing it, I will tell you. Understand the core problem. The core problem is Excel doesn't know where to end. It has to guess where your block ends, but at least you know where your block ends. So you physically, manually go to the end of the block, wherever that block is. In this case, you will have to do manual navigation. There is no easy way of going to the end of a block, especially if there are multiple blocks of data. Sometimes control end works, but not guaranteed. Now you manually select your data. This is a selection which says this is the extent of my data, but it's temporary. When you click outside, it's going to go. So how to make it permanent? This is how you tell Excel, this is my data. Insert table, new concept in Excel. Now what does it do? It recognizes that, puts some nice formatting, puts an auto filter drop down, and that's it. It still has gaps, nothing has changed, but something has changed. Now Excel does not have to resort to guesswork to find where is the end of the data, but because it explicitly knows the extent of your data. So now because you have created the table, when you type a formula here, it doesn't even ask you whether you want to copy it. It just does it for you. Till where? Wherever the table ends. No questions asked. Again. Yeah, I know. It's too good to be true, so let me repeat it. As usual, I am doing nothing special. The only special thing is I have created a table. Now I am typing the same formula and pressing enter. No drag, no double click, nothing. How do you make the table? First select the data manually. How do you select it manually? That you will have to do it some way. And then insert table. So select the data first. Thank you. Insert table. It expects a header. In the first column we have amount, and then click OK. That's all. The rule is data should be columnar. Each column should have a header. No blank headers, no merged cells, no duplicate headers, and no formulas in the header itself. Once you satisfy these rules, Essentially, it means a tabular data. No merge cells. Multiple columns, of course it can have multiple, as many as you want. No merge, no. Then unmerge that. If you had, let's say, a column here which said FY 2010 and amount and tax, then unmerge it and say amount FY10 and tax FY10. It's very easy to do that. The idea why do we merge cells is because we want to use the data as a report. Never use raw data as report. That's the best practice. By doing that, you are creating more problems than solving. So, what is good data and what is bad data? That is a very, very important thought process everyone has to learn. Good data is the kind of data which can be directly converted to a table. Everything else is bad data. So, what is good and bad? One quick example. Is this good data? What is our rule? Every column should have a header. And in that column, whatever is there should be there. So this is a good column. Is this a good column? This is expected to be a header. Is one a header or data? So where data comes in header, your life is spoiled. Why do we do it? Because we know we want a report like this. We know the intended format of the final report. So naturally we think, why not do data entry in that format so that I don't have to put extra effort in making the report. While I am entering data, report is getting created. Logically correct, provided that is the only report you need. If you need anything else, is 100 times more difficult now. And to make matters worse, this is only 1 month's data. For next month you will add 12 more month tabs here, and for next year you will add 3 files. And now if you want to see absenteeism trend across 3 years, 2 days are gone in copy paste. So if your data is bad, everything goes bad. So if this data had to be in good format, how should it have been? It's obvious. All of us are technical people. It should be like a database table. Let there be repetition. What is the problem? Employee ID, date, status. But that's not all. There is one more guy pending. The tab name. Very often you will have seen tabs showing locations, products, months. That is nightmare. The columns are same in each tab. Then why not put one more column called month and finish it off? Earlier there was a 65,000 problem. Now we have 1 million. Even that problem is solved if you use Power Pivot. You can have hundreds of millions of rows and it will still work beautifully. I'll show you a demo after break. So there is no reason not to have long growing data. In fact, don't say month, say year. So across years you can put it here. What's the issue? Now this data is never going to look like a report, but any report you want will come instantly using pivot table or Power Pivot. That's the idea. Now one of the worst formats in which we get data is called crosstab. You may have seen this type of data. This is not column and column headings. These are column headings and these are row headings. Agreed? So what is the problem with this data? This cell means this and this. This cell means this and this. So not only is this data where heading should have come, here also instead of heading data has come. Ideally the heading for this column should be expense type, this should be month, and the third column should be expense or whatever that number is. And there should be a fourth column called department, because we have each department sending us data like this. It could be each department, region, whatever, product manager. So when you get this data, the biggest problem is you want to consolidate. And consolidation doesn't simply mean putting a formula which says sheet 1 plus sheet 2 plus sheet 3 and then copy paste. Why? Because there is no standardization. In this case, C6 is insurance and Jan. That may not be the case in the next sheet. So because you are not sure what is what, just a simple copy of this plus this is not going to work. You are going to waste a lot of time copy pasting. So there is a better way. What is the better way? I am sure you have seen this dialog before. Pivot chart wizard. Now that has been removed, but now never mind, it's still there. How do you get it? Two ways. One is put custom quick access toolbar, or all the shortcut keys which you are used to in 2003 still work. So Alt D will open the data menu, and P is pivot table. So alt DP will also give you this. Never mind. We have used this thousands of times but never went here. So what do? Go to next. It is asking you where are the pieces of data, tell me. Then you tell him where are the pieces of data. We know there are 4 pieces. So go to each piece. How do you select the block, by the way? Control A. In spite of you knowing it, you would not have used Control A in this situation, because when it comes to formulas, we are used to go into the corner and then pressing Shift and write down. Never tried Control A. It works. So now you just combine it and say finish. That's it. Obviously, even if the data is large, it's going to take you only so much time, so it's efficient. But this has a problem because sometimes people put ambiguous spellings. This is also a problem. Ideally, both these should have been combined into one item. And fortunately, what you have got now is a pivot table. It's not a hard-coded sum formula. So we want to combine these two. So right click and say group. Excel doesn't know what to call the group, so we call it whatever we want. This can also be used for correcting spelling mistakes. And now that we know the correct ones, column is the one with spelling mistake. Column 2 is the grouped one. So you remove the unwanted column, you remove the unwanted row, and then you have it. This is how you consolidate cross-tab data. 18 years. Nobody knows. Now what if more data comes next month? No problem. You can go to the same wizard, say back, go to that dialog, add a future file also. It's not only retrospective, it will work in a prospective manner as well. Done? Now, what did we do? We saved enormous amount of time. And I'm sure you are realizing that if you somehow get everyone to understand all this, you will definitely save unimaginable amount of time. Now the question is, even if you save lots and lots of time on every desktop every day, is your cost going down, or you will have to pay the same salaries to people? Same salaries. Just because we are saving time, is the top line or bottom line going to grow? No. So what is the big deal? Yeah, but if you just save time and do nothing about it, it will just evaporate, not lead to anything positive. So today what is happening? That copy pasting was the operational work which I eliminated. I have reduced the red part, but I still don't know what to do with the saved time. So when you save time, there are two things primarily you are going to do. If you save time, I'm sure you have a backlog. You will manage the backlog. Once there is no backlog and then still there is more time, now what do? Before that, you look at your job description. When you are given a job description, it has a long list. But if you really look at it, are we doing justice to each bullet? Generally the answer is no. So now that you have extra time, start doing justice to all the bullets properly. You will grow faster. That's the idea. And go beyond that. After doing all that, you have time left. Then what do? 2 things. Invest part of that time into further learning, because learning is the one which is giving you that reward called time. So you should accentuate it. And the remaining time you spend in analysis. So now let me show you how that is done. This is good data now. We have not wasted time copy pasting it. Done. Now the real work of optimizing the budget in this case is going to happen. How are you going to do that? First you need to know the overall picture of what's happening. Only then you can do optimization. Now what is the overall picture in this case? All expense headings and all months. This is a demo, so there are only these many expense headings. In real life it will be a long list. How will I get a complete picture overall? Making a chart in this case is going to be very confusing. What is this chart telling you? Nothing. So in this case, ideally you should use a new method that is available only in 2010. Insert an empty area outside. As of now, Sparkline is not synchronized or coordinated with pivot table, but never mind. It's a good start. Select empty area. Then go to insert. Don't go to the traditional line chart. Go to Sparkline line chart. It's a special type of line chart. All it is asking you is show me the data based on which I need to draw a chart. And that's it. Nothing seems to have happened, but it has. Essentially, it drew a chart for each row separately. What are the benefits? You can see the overall pattern clearly. In some cases, if you had drawn a regular chart, you would have required multiple y-axis because some things are big numbers, some things are medium numbers, some things are small numbers. Now you can have 2 y-axis, you can't have 20 y-axis. So if you have more than 2 variations in scale of numbers, that is useless. Here the scale doesn't matter because the scale is pertaining to this row. This row may have a different scale, still it will give you the pattern. Now from an expense point of view, high expense is bad and low expense is good. So you can actually go to these spark line tools and do what? You can ask him to show the high point in a particular way and the low point in a particular way. And now it becomes even more readable. Now while doing this, I forgot to put this here, so no problem, it works like a formula. You can drag it, it will understand this also. Now just a simple glance at it, you will know that somewhere in October my budget is highest and somewhere in November it is lowest. That doesn't sound proper. It should not suddenly drop like this. So I'll go and investigate. Probably in the regular course of my consolidation and optimization, I would not have noticed that part. Now that I have noticed it, I'll figure out, find what is the issue and take action. So time saving is done. But now we are gathering more useful pieces of information which otherwise would have been lost. Lost and useful pieces of information is what? Lost opportunity. So the more you do this, more opportunities will come your way. In fact, they are already there. Nobody is discovering them because everyone's time is going in making and delivering standard reports on time. In fact, 80% of people spend 50% of time making reports and dumping it on someone else who is apparently senior. They don't even interpret that report because their job is to go to the next report and make it. Now that we have released time at every desktop, why can't everyone start looking at the data in a more domain specific manner because they also know the content and then start finding out information. This is good, gives you overall picture. Now I want to see it within a month. Now, unless I ask you the question, don't answer. Can I compare this 61 with this 23 with this 50? They are all advertising, but compared to the total budget of Jan, how much am I spending on advertising in Jan, Feb or March? That's what I want to know. Besides, in this, what is taking maximum, you still need little time to figure out. You can sort on something, but then you can either sort on Jan or Feb or March. You can't sort on everything. So, would it not be better if these were shown as percentage of this? So wait, how do you show it as percentage? Most people would manually go put a percentage formula, copy paste. That's not required. When in doubt, right click and tell me which option sounds useful. In this case, because we have one column, these two will give you the same result. So that's the result. No, sorry, in this case, those two options will give you a different result. I'll tell you why. This is percentage of column. That means each column is going to total to 100. So what does this mean? In Jan, I am spending 4% of my budget in advertising. In Feb, only 1.74. In March, only 3.73 of that month's budget. That is percentage of column. Now, if I had done percentage of grand total, that would be a completely different picture. Nothing is going to total to 100 except the overall budget for all expense, all months. So now what does this say? Of all the expense, 0.36 is what I am spending for advertising in Jan. That's a completely different picture. How much effort did we take? Few clicks. Never mind the clicks. It is going to give you a different view of the same data, and that will help you understand and manage the cash flows or budgets better. But again, this is visual to a limited extent. Notice this is 13, 11, 14. They are similar numbers. But if you put conditional formatting here, data bars, it will make even that clearer. This is the way you put data bars within the cell. It's like drawing a bar chart, but not on a separate chart surface, only here. Is this good? Now you can see visually the difference between these three apparently similar numbers. That will improve interpretation. Problem is, right now I had to do this for Jan. And then why? Because if I had done it for the whole cell, it would have taken the highest value across all months and drawn the chart. So it has to be done column by column, which I have done. And now I'll have to do that 12 times. But then it will take lowest and highest values across all columns. That's what, then 12 times, no? Each month. So when in doubt, look for this icon. This always thinks ahead of you. It says you want that to be done. You don't do it, I will do it for you. This is called real work by using features to your advantage. So whenever you are looking at data, think, how can I make it easier to interpret for myself as well as the person whom I am sending the report to. Very often report formats are decided by someone across the lifespan of the company. Everyone just complies with them. Nobody really cares, is there a simpler way of doing it? So if you start doing it, life will be easier for you as well as others. So this is what I am trying to show you as. Now notice what's happened here. Now this chart has no meaning because it's talking about percentages. Only when there are real values, this chart has a meaning. So if you say show values as no calculation, then the chart change. So this chart should be used without percent. This percentage is for better comparison within a column. Got the idea? Yeah, question.
My question was that when you convert it to percentage, the grand total row and the column also.
Grand total of the row changes in this case because it was percentage of column.
But what if I want to have the values there? Because if you look at the table with the values,
I understand.
It gives you a fair idea of how much have been spent.
I understand. So in that case, what you do is do this. Make it percentage. Done. Now drag and drop the amount column, in this case the value column again. So it will show percentage and actuals. If you want to compare this with this, might as well compare individual items as well. So this is actual, this is percentage. And a little pair will be there for each month. Gives you best of both worlds. Any questions? So now with this in mind, let's see what we can do with data analysis. I'm going to take a very simple data. This is sales data. Every row here is a transaction. And I'm going to ask you to focus only on the amount column. Normally when we make pivot table, we think there must be at least two things, one in row, one in value, or one in column, one in value, or more than one column being utilized in the pivot table. That itself is a misconception. Just with one column, let me show you how much you can understand about the data. What is this telling you? This transaction was 12. I have sorted it. So highest transaction was somewhere 20,000. Never mind. That means there is a lot of variability in these 2,800 transactions. Wouldn't you like to know how many small, how many medium, how many big size transactions? That will give you a pattern of how people are buying your goods. And based on that, many other things can be tweaked. So how would you do that? If I make a pivot table, getting the grand total is easy. That's the grand total. Getting the count of transactions is easy. You just say count, summarize value by count. But this is the overall picture. Now I want to see it across my expense range from 12 to almost 20,000. How would you do that? Quiz. The data is in amount column only. I have already used amount column here. I have already used amount column here. Only using amount column. What do I do more? That's what I want to do, but how? I don't want to move. I want both, right?
No, we can move one of the values to the report filter.
No. Slicer is used for filtering. Here we are not filtering, we are grouping. Okay, look at the data. What do I have? Sales type, dealer or direct, goes on and on and on, 2,800 types. When I drag drop sales channel or sales type, what is going to be there in row area? Select, distinct, whatever that column name is. So does it mean only text should be added here? Can I put a number column like amount? It also does select distinct amount. So what is it telling you now? 14 bucks, 5 transactions, 70 bucks. Like that it will go on and on. Slightly better than before. You could have done that manually also by going here and say, oh, 12.1, then 14.5. But this has done it for you. Fair enough. But originally we had 2,800 transactions. Now we have just brought it down to 2,600 because there are so many unique numbers. You can't help it. But this is too much of detail. So we know how to do grouping, right? Suppose you want detail 0 to 1000. What will you do? 1000, then right click group 1, then you may name it 0 to 1000. 20 times you'll have to do it. Obviously that's bad. Why did we have to do that? Because that was text. Excel doesn't understand text. Excel is very good with numbers. So now if you still go to the same option, Excel understood the data type is different and then it's telling me, why are you doing the dirty work? I am designed for that. You tell me, I will do it. It's much better now, but it's still not giving you the correct picture because these are big numbers. You can't make out what's happening. So what should we do? Now what is it telling me? The small transactions, 25% by. This is called volume value analysis. This is what people in sales do. But do they do it this way? Absolutely not. They do it manually. So who is most probably doing this analysis? A salesperson. Agree? Because this is sales data. Now what will happen? Every transaction has a similar overhead. Agreed? But the revenue component is very small. That means I am losing money here. I should discourage these kind of transactions, move this audience to this. Can a sales guy do that? Whose job is it? To understand market segmentation and entice people from one segment to go to another segment. Whose job is it? Advertising and marketing. So a salesperson analyzed data and created some actionable item useful for the marketing team. You understand? It's not only value which you will add to your own role, you can actually add cross-functional value if you do this. This is a classic problem because very often useful pieces of information for you actually are emanating from someone else's data and they don't talk to each other. A sales report will not go to a marketing person. Even if it does, this report is never asked for. Yeah.
No, but we can apply this in other scenarios as well.
Sure.
In IT,
Yeah.
we normally analyze the data. How many calls are we getting through
Correct.
every day or every hour?
Correct.
What is the amount of work that goes in?
Absolutely.
And this then can be used by other management and to deploy more resources or to
Yeah.
automate things.
Correct. So what I'm showing you is knowing pivot table is the first step. Knowing it fully well is the second step. But the biggest step is to applying it creatively and not get stuck in just reproducing old reports faster. That is not going to lead you to growth. So what is analysis? Analysis means learning from past to improve future. Analysis does not mean delivering reports on a periodic basis on deadline. That is where things have gravitated to now. People are being paid money just to make reports. Why? They also have a brain. Where is that being used? And if it is used, everyone benefits. So let me give you an IT example. I'm sure you must be using lots of large logs for troubleshooting. Server logs, event viewer logs, database logs, IIS logs. So generally we import it in Excel, CSV, whatever. I have 2000 whatever large log. I want to understand what went wrong. The fact that you are analyzing means you are not doing it for fun. Something is wrong, you are troubleshooting. So do you use pivot table there? We could. I know. Everyone knows we can. But do we? And if someone uses in pockets, is it a mandatory thing for everyone in IT who analyzes logs to understand and use pivot table? That is where the value is getting lost. So even if you say use pivot table, how to use it also is important. So first step is functional or operational skill. Second is applied skill. You don't wait for others to create it. You create a applied best practice and make it mandatory for everyone who needs it. That's the only way. If you wait for everyone to mature, have enough drive to learn and apply correctly, that's never going to happen. If it had to happen, it would have happened in 25 years. So, never mind. Let's do troubleshooting. You know there are only 3 types of events. Sorry. Correct? I want to count. So, I will count. I am not interested in information and warning. I am only interested in error. Totally all put together I have these many. I only want to focus on error. Done. Now I want to see sources. Lots of sources. Never mind. I sort it so that I know who is the biggest. Now sometimes event viewer itself generates errors for event viewer. I have still not understood why, but never mind. W32 time errors are generally ignored. This guy is important. This is a hardware error. This can bring down the server if the interrupts become very high. It has happened 56 times. So I want to focus on that. So I'll put this guy also here. Now only focus on what? CD-ROM. So anyway, from 2000 something we have brought it down. What's happening, man? Yeah. So I'll filter on CD-ROM. And then what happens? We are bringing it down to 56. Now I want to know when did this happen. Did it happen one error every day or happened suddenly or whatever. Then I put date and time. This is the most irritating. When there is a timestamp, it becomes very confusing to understand what's happening. So what do we do now? Many people go to the raw data now, put a column here and put all sorts of date time functions to bring it down to day resolution rather than timestamp resolution. Is it cumbersome? Yes. Is it a struggle? Yes. What does that mean? You don't know the right way. Now we know the right way. When you don't know, right click. Where should we go? Multiple things. No. Multiple things you want to put in one thing. Group. This is very smart. It understands its data type is different. CD-ROM failed on 16th Feb. 15 seconds of troubleshooting. Got the idea? Now you will say, this is nice, but our event logs go very large. This is a demo. 2000 is nothing for an event log. It can be millions of rows. And this guy only handles 1 million. If you want more, you have to put it in a database and then struggle with it. Fair enough. But now there is a big brother of pivot table all of you should know about. That guy is called Power Pivot. You have to download it from powerpivot.com and install it. It's everything you ever wanted to have in pivot table and didn't know where to get it from, this guy gives you. This is an add-in made by Microsoft, so no issues. It is not made by the Excel team. It is made by the SQL Server BI team. So what does it do? It adds a tab called Power Pivot. What does that guy do? Let me show you. First let me show you a file and then I'll show you the capabilities of Power Pivot. One of the biggest problems all your users face, or some of them if not all, is large data sizes and pivot tables crawling. When you drag drop it takes 15 minutes to refresh kind of stuff. So let me show you one example. This is the file I am about to open. It's a 5 MB file, healthcare audit. It's a large log. So let me open it. So now Excel from a data handling and pivot table point of view has many deficiencies. One of the deficiencies is data size limitation of the sheet. Second is if you give a large data, it simply becomes too slow. It can't handle that load. And how many times will you upgrade machines? So now what you do is don't store the data in Excel. Don't store it in an external database. There is a mini database available under Power Pivot. So you go to Power Pivot window. It's a separate UI. It stores data within its own context. When you save it back, it is still an XLSX file. You don't have to handle 2 files. So now it's showing you the data which is behind that dashboard which you saw. There are many charts and pivot tables and stuff here. So when it opens the data, you will see how many rows there are. This looks like Excel, but this is not real Excel. This is column level stuff. Now, how much data can it handle? How many rows are there? 31. Now all of us know that Pivot table cannot be created on multiple pieces of data. You have a transactional file, there is a product ID there, you have another piece of data which is product ID to product description. To decode that, what do you need to do? VLOOKUP. And then you are unnecessarily adding one more extra column with heavy calculation load, and file becomes even more slow. So now finally, without using Access or any other database, you can get data from multiple sources into one Power Pivot window. Where can you get data from? Everywhere you can think of. All databases, any OLEDB, ODBC. If you have a cube, directly from the cube. If you have an RDL file in SSRS, directly from RDL file. Azure, which is cloud. Atom feeds, which are new. But least common denominator, Excel and text still works. So potentially, this piece could have been coming from an Excel file, this coming from SQL Server, this coming from a data warehouse. But how do you link them? You'll see that there are links. So if I have action ID and action name, which is the master, and then I have another place where there is only action ID, what do? I create a relationship. It's a mini database, you can say. It doesn't have all the capabilities of a full-fledged RDBMS. It can only create a simple left outer join kind of relationship. So this table, this column is equal to that table, that column. That's it. No inner outer stuff. But that's good enough. So now let me show you this file, this table, log table. How many records does it have? Can you see at the back? How many records? 44 million records. And what was the file size? 5 MB. That is one of the most brilliant features. It does deduplication based compression like a data warehouse. So it's extremely compact. Imagine putting this in 44 sheets of an Excel file. It would have gone into hundreds of MBs by now. Never mind, all this is nice, but what about the processing? Let's look at the processing. Now this is a filter. There are multiple charts. Each chart is a pivot chart. So there has to be a pivot table behind it. Agree? Now what is going to happen when I change the filter condition? It has to go through 44 million records and change multiple tables and charts. So how long do you think it will take? Minutes at least, if not anything more. So look at it. 1, 2, 3. Same machine. My machine is already extremely overloaded. You saw my processor was 90 something %. Still it works beautifully. And you see how many applications I am running right now. It's a 4 GB old, 4-year-old machine. No, 2010 only. So this is the power of Power Pivot. So it eliminates unnecessary, lengthy, costly VLOOKUPs. It allows you to get multi-source data with the mini ETL kind of engine. Allows you to create relationships. So it removes dependence on a third database. And it gives you something more. It gives you OLAP-like functions which were always missing in Excel. This comes with a language called DAX, D-A-X, which is similar to MDX. It's a subset, but it gives you OLAP-like features without creating a cube. This guy creates a cube in its own mind, in-memory cube. So here is a common problem, which all of you probably and your users may have faced by now. What is the problem? Here is a simple piece of data. To understand the problem, I have kept the data simple. I have transactions across 2 days. So I am going to filter it on only one of the days, 2nd Jan. So how many transactions happened? 5. How many customers came? Not 5. 2. How many unique products were sold? Are you sure? P1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if I do this in pivot table, normal pivot table, what will happen? If I say show me the date, it will show you the dates. And if I say count number of products sold, what will it say? 5, 5, because it's not really counting products, it's counting the cells where something is mentioned in the product. It's actually counting the rows rather than counting the products uniquely. This is a very, very common requirement And to avoid, because this is not happening at user level, they have no choice, they manually do it, they use all sorts of count if, sum if kind of logic, they use array formulas, somehow it works. If you had a data warehouse, this would be a default language available through MDX or through UI. So now, is this large amount of data? Not really. This is a table. So even if it is small amount of data, in order to get some functionality which the regular Excel pivot table doesn't offer, it makes sense to go to Power Pivot. Now this is already a table. If it's a table, Power Pivot can directly link it to Power Pivot data so that you don't have to keep importing and refreshing every now and then, which I have already done. So this is the same pivot table here, same table data here. Small data, there is no VLOOKUP, no relationship. And now I have created a Power Pivot based pivot table. This allows you to create measures. Measures are a concept of MDX, correct? So this allows you to create MDX like measures on flat data. Remember, this is flat data. This is not a warehouse. This has not been pre-processed. There is no star schema, nothing. I just have few rows, that's all. But I can have special functions now. There is a function called distinct, which takes a table as a parameter, and table and a column, and gives you an output which is a table, another table, which gives you distinct values. And there is a function called count rows, which counts the rows. So combination of this gives you distinct count. Like this, there are many commonly required functions. One of the commonest place where reporting time is wasted in copy pasting and manual formulas is monitoring budget versus actual, or this quarter this year versus same quarter last year. People spend inordinate amount of time maintaining such files. So now we have features like parallel period. You say this is the dates column, I want it by month, 1 month. So this will give you last month's data comparison. If I say interval is quarter and interval is -1, it will give you last quarter. So just by using this, you can have complex calculations done. For opening closing balances, we have direct functions called opening balance, closing balance. There are lots of new functions added which are available to you only if you make a Power Pivot based pivot table. So this is another reason why, in spite of not having large or complex data, you need Power Pivot. It is an add-in, free add-in, but it works only on 2010. That's the issue. Now, what did we do just now? In the earlier example I showed you, the healthcare example, what did we do? We had used Power Pivot window to gather data from multiple sources. Assuming all those sources were server based, I put this file on SharePoint. Now what does that file contain? As of now, multiple data sources pooled into one data source, correct? Now another Excel file stored on SharePoint can use that Excel file's data source as data. What does that mean? I create a Power Pivot file. It has no pivot table at all. It just has accumulated data and related it in from various sources. I don't do any analysis there. I keep it as a data source, which is a more comprehensive data source for me. Use that as an input for other Excel files, and then I am making reports in those Excel files. So Power Pivot data, when posted on SharePoint, becomes a data source by itself, which is even more brilliant. This is the way to distribute large amount of heterogeneous data to users. Normally, what would you do in such case? You will, for individual pieces of information, you will give them CSV files or some dump, and they are struggling to do it. So you give them pre-related data, maybe from different sources. From their point of view, it's a single click to create a pivot table. Got the idea? So you must explore Power Pivot. It is the best thing which happened since pivot table was created. Any questions on Power Pivot? Of course, I don't expect users to understand DAX formulas, but someone from IT, if they spend little time, whoever knows MDX, it will take 3 days for them to pick it up. And then that's not enough. You have to go to users, look at their struggle, analyze the struggle, fit your DAX knowledge there, and tell them in this situation you need Power Pivot, and this is how you do it. Because the problem with users is when they struggle, because everyone else is struggling, they think that struggle is normal. That's what we are supposed to do. They never escalate to IT. If there's a bug, they will escalate to IT. If there's a performance issue, maybe they will. But if they're struggling in Excel 6 hours copy paste, nobody is going to come to IT and say, help me. If they had, probably it was a simple group by clause from IT point of view, but people don't know it. So never mind, this is all nice and sophisticated. Let me show you something really simple but really scary. This is what happens in Excel. This is the simplest possible Excel file. I have 4 rows of data. I have a simple formula. So far, no problem. This is user 1 who created it. I have saved the file, closed the file. Later on, some user comes, adds another formula somewhere else. Data is same. Close the file, save the file. Next month, this user 1 is going to open the data and do what? Add next month's data. Is this common? All the time people keep doing it. I know formulas are not going to change. I know how to change them. Done. Now what am I going to do? Save the file, close the file. Tomorrow that other guy is going to open it. Now what is going to happen? I'm not going to look at this formula. I'm going to look at this formula. I have not added any data. I don't know someone else has added it. So I assume whatever number I am seeing is correct. And I take a decision. That decision is wrong because the number is wrong. Do you agree? So imagine how many Excel files, how many formulas, how many users, what is the frequency of update. This is common or rare? You would like it to be rare, but you can't say it is rare because it must be happening as we speak. What does that mean? Potentially, many decisions are wrongly taken without anybody wanting to do it consciously. Do you remember someone had downgraded US and then it turned out that 1 trillion number was missed? How do you think that happened? Someone didn't update a formula, I guess. So what is this called? I tend to show simple things, but many people don't get impressed because we get impressed when you see big words. So what is the big word for this problem? No, big word. It should be impressive. This is the biggest operational risk in the world. Show me a risk manager who has taken mitigative steps for this. 0. So what is the mitigation? Every time you open an Excel file, you have to manually click on each formula, go to formula, you have to go to trace trace dependence, double click all over the place, check, oh, this is a problem, then come back, come down, and then manually change it. Do you think anybody is going to do it? For many reasons. 99% people don't even know formula auditing exists. And 1% who know don't have time. What does that mean? It's very risky. Is it user 1's fault or user 2's fault? In fact, if you ask this question to both of them independently or together or in front of their bosses, everyone will have a unanimous answer. This is Excel's problem. Agreed? Better still, Microsoft's problem. Is it Excel's problem? We are asking Excel C6 to C9. It is doing that faithfully. Now the fact that you added C10 later, Excel can't change your formula without you asking. So it is keeping quiet, but it's not. It is actually doing something even though it is not Excel's fault. It's showing you a warning. And our mindset about Office is what I don't know, I don't need. So this warning is ignored billion times every day. That green mark is a warning. Now, why would you have a green mark as a warning? Have you seen anything else in any part of the world which is a warning which is in green color? So why is Microsoft confusing us? Anyone can give me the answer, I'll give you a prize. Why did they choose this color? Isn't it stupid?
The yellow is for the command.
So we are talking about ideally which color should have been used. So what is the problem in using red? Microsoft controls the color. There is an option to change the color, agreed, but nobody is looking at it anyway. So where is the question of changing the color? By default ही करते थे तो अच्छा था ना.
But it gives you switch.
It gives you a custom option, I agree. No, why did they not choose the red color? That is the question. Comments. Yes, that is the answer. I think this is the last prize I have. So for 25 years, red color meant a comment, and 1 billion people use this. That green thing was added 8 years back. So suddenly, can Microsoft change the meaning of red color and confuse those billion people? That's why they had to choose a different color. So they chose a diagonally opposite color. You've seen color wheel, the opposite color is green. And hope that people have some curiosity left and they will figure it out. The problem was nobody has curiosity left. And if you do click on it, then you get this guy. This guy we have learned to ignore for 13 years now. So nobody clicks on it. But if you did, it is actually telling you the problem and even helping you to correct it. It just needs your consent to change the formula on your behalf. If it had done it automatically, 1 billion people would have sued Microsoft, and Microsoft doesn't have that much money for litigation. So now, there is nothing to give warning because it has done it. So there is no warning required and there is no operational risk. So what did we learn? Don't ignore green marks. You should go and correct them. Simple. But that's not as simple. So far we have done it. Next time I add something. What is going to happen? Somewhere green marks are going to come. How do I know? Sometimes data is on one sheet, formulas are on other sheets. Who is going to go all over the place searching for green marks? So you don't go. Ask Excel, because Excel is the one putting the green marks. So formula error checking. It will take your cursor to each cell containing different errors and ask you what to do. You tell him what to do and then it is, now you're okay. For this sheet, this has to be repeated for every sheet of every Excel file. Otherwise you are taking a risk. Done? Now what happens? We have done it. Great. Error free. Happy situation. How long are you happy? Till next data per entry. So short-lived happiness. But this time you know at least that as soon as I type more, I am going to require to spend additional time going one by one correcting mistakes. Now that you know that it is important, you can't avoid it also. But it sounds like a... Can we do something proactive or preventive? Very nice. We have already seen the feature. The way to submit to Excel and go to Excel and say, sir, you are more capable than me in managing formulas, because operationally I am never going to be able to control every user's whims and fancies. Why don't you update formulas based on this block of data? It's not a global decision. It's not a global authorization for this block of data. And that is the biggest benefit of table. All that we saw earlier was minor benefits. Now, this guy is authorized to manage all your formulas. No questions asked. Same sheet, across sheets, across other files if the files are open, it's now automatic. This is the way to minimize operational risk without increasing manual work overhead.